Hi, and welcome to Simplify Your Business and Personal Finances. For those who don't know me, I'm Alpha Schulte, and I'll just go through a little bit about me. I am an ex-corporate tax accountant. Certainly not what I kind of had planned on my career vision board, but it's taught me quite a lot. But one of the things that I found the most interesting was that when I actually started my own business, doing what I'm doing now, the learning curve is very steep, which I think every business owner is not quite prepared. It's a bit like having a child. You cannot imagine what it's like until they actually are there and you realize, oh my gosh, this is so much more than I ever expected. So there's been a big learning curve, a lot of things on my journey, and I've sort of utilized a lot of different things. Like I've gone to the seminars and workshops, and this is not just business stuff. This is also personal development because there's a lot of the mindset stuff that comes into it, which is why I cover off on a lot of that as well. But yeah, so mastermind groups and coaches, and oh my goodness, there's a lot. So what I wanted to do today is to just help with the financial side, because as a small business owner, our business finances fund our personal life. And quite often we don't necessarily look at it that way because it's all very intertwined. So what I'm going to cover off on is some clarity on the money side in particular, about what you want from money and why, and then utilize how to then use systems and automation to simplify the process to make sure that your why flows through and is aligned with how you actually set up your business, and then how you manage your money to help support the personal life that you want. So there's the thread going through in that way. And then ultimately who we need to help us do that. Because even as small business owners, in the early days, we tend to do a lot ourselves because we are still trying to, we're putting all our money back into the business. But at some point, we do still need to have external help. Some of them will be regulars, some will come in and come out. And then the systems and the tools, they cost as well. So we'll figure out how to simplify those too. So launching right in, clarity. Oh my goodness. It's clarity is one of those funny things. Everybody wants it. Yes. But it's not always easy to get. So the way I see clarity, because I'm a very process sequential driven person. And here we go. We've got try to understand how things are operating. So the vision first and foremost, understanding really what we want. And this isn't like a steadfast vision that will never change, because I think we kind of, especially when we start our professional lives, we think we have to have this view and that's it. We can't change it. That's not the case. So as we grow and we develop, we mature, we have experiences, we have children, our businesses morph and change a bit, our vision tends to grow too. So understanding what that is at the moment. So you still need to have that clarity, because what you do then with that clarity is you understand the goals that you want to achieve. And these are often your financial goals, which will also then impact how you structure your business. So there's a strategic aspect to this where you look at your business model, what kind of products and services that you want to offer. And these go both ways. There's a bit of what do clients want from you, plus what do you enjoy doing? Those have to be aligned. Otherwise, you're going to just bring a kind of energy if you're doing the things in your business that you don't really enjoy purely because people are paying you to do them. And to a certain extent, we've all been there. It's even when you're working with clients that aren't really kind of fulfilling you. That's and even the services, or if you're a product-based businesses, the products that you're offering, if they don't light you up, it's going to show up in how you're promoting them. And then your business brand will start to sort of be diluted as a result. So having those goals, and then the plan kind of comes from that as well. So having the tactical side to actually implement that strategy, and everything really flows on from the other. So having that vision goal, or vision view, I should say, the goals that you actually want for that, and the strategy behind that, and then the plan to help you get there. And then the plan will have lots of steps. So very important then to prioritize those steps. Otherwise, we'll get sit and overwhelmed. This is where I tend to encounter a lot of my clients where they're like, I've got so much to do. I've got this and this. And then just by sitting there and like seeing or thinking about all these things, it stagnates them. So it actually then prevents them from taking action and doing the things they really need to do to shift the dial. Because then what also happens is we stay doing the things that we actually really like doing or are really easy to do. And we don't necessarily get through the things that will actually shift the dial. So this is where clarity becomes really important. I won't go into too much detail on that today, mainly because that is pretty much an entire session in and of itself. And that's more
Yes.
of a workshop style thing. So, but just to understand, this is sort of like the progress of building on how to actually achieve clarity and get to the point where you're taking the right actions that will actually shift the dial. The vision part, though, does involve lifestyle visioning. So when you're a small business owner, there's two aspects to this. There's what sort of business lifestyle do you want? And then what kind of personal lifestyle do you want that business to fund? So the business lifestyle, and I've got a number of sort of pictures here, is do you want to be in an office and be surrounded by people and meet in boardrooms and have, not necessarily even boardrooms, but just have people where you can mastermind physically? Or do you want to be more of a speaker as well? You can also, you can have a variety of these too. So do you want to be more of I can work from anywhere, that whole laptop life concept, or I can travel all over the place, or I can be sitting in my car if I need to do bits and pieces. To be honest, that probably suits me quite a bit. I like to move around. I've been in corporate for many, many years, and the idea of sitting in an office all day in a boardroom just does not appeal to me. But
Yes, I need
that's
freedom.
yes. Well, that's one of your core values. So, and that's the other thing, understanding where our values fit into this. So, one of my core values is creativity. And being sort of sitting in like four walls constantly does not denote freedom or creativity or freedom of creativity to me. And then how you actually want to be. So it's important to actually envision that, because you won't create it unless you understand that's what you want. Otherwise
I know that
Sorry?
I know that, I definitely know that I would, I want to travel to purchase goods for my business.
Yeah. And that will fulfill a number of different things for you, because that will then impact your personal lifestyle too. Because
Yep.
and this is one of the things I used to do when I did work in corporate and I would travel for work, I would always tack on some time. Didn't really matter where I was. And even if I'd been to that place before, I used to travel to Christchurch a fair bit. And this was before the earthquake they had, unfortunately. But and then I would I'd pick a different spot every time. And so you can build all that in. So if that's important to you, then whenever you travel to source product for your business, you can also tack on a little bit of personal time. It doesn't have to be much, but just enough to fulfill you.
Yep.
And then in the personal life side, do you want to fly in a private jet? Do you want to, sort of need to own one, but you could, what is the level of elevation that you want? Do you want sports cars? Do you like jewelry? Do you want to go to the theater? Do you want to live on a farm? Do you want to travel? Do you like having a big mansion? There's all sorts of things. Or do you want to live in a tiny home? I couldn't find a picture of a tiny home. I've got a big block of lands. Do you want to have a little hobby farm? It really, really is dependent. And once you get clear on that and you hit on that, it makes it a lot easier to plan. So that's where I was talking about, like the vision. That's what this is designed to actually help you achieve, is clarity of the vision of where you're heading. Because then you can plan and make decisions on that basis.
This webinar has come in so handy already today.
I know we hear the things we need to hear when we need to hear them. We just trust the universe.
Especially after yesterday's conversation with Jess.
Yes, we'll we'll delve into that for sure. So then what kind of business or company do you want? Do you want a company? So that's the other thing too. For a lot of small business owners, there's a concept of, do they want a company or an actual business behind them, or are they a personal brand? So understanding that will also help you with how you structure it. So, and then also how you actually set up the systems to support it as well. And then what your end game is. Do you eventually want to sell it? If you do, then it's probably easy to do that with a business name rather than a personal brand. But so thinking about that. And even if you're in the early stages of your business, you can still morph and adapt if you need to, depending on what you want. And quite often we don't really know what we want until we start to do something. So it's possible to pivot and change, because that's life. And then why do you want that kind of business and company? And that will then link back to the lifestyle vision to help you kind of establish what you want. If you want it a little bit simpler, then maybe more of a small business would be better. Sole trader, but then there's issues in relation to asset protection, but that's when you get a lawyer who'd be part of your team to help with that. And then how much money does your business actually need to make? Once you figure out what personal lifestyle that you want, you can then figure out how much your business needs to make, and you can structure your products and services around that. And we build what they call an ascension model to help you actually get there.
Great.
That becomes really important, because then that will then feed into your personal side of the kind of lifestyle that you want, again, why you want it. And if you've got children and a husband, you also need to understand the familial side of it. So it is about what you want, but it's also then aligning to what sort of lifestyle you think your children will want. Like my husband has a dream of being on the sailboat and sailing around the world. And that would require like up to weeks and weeks of being in the open ocean with no sight of land, which, as a somewhat social person, and my daughter is a social butterfly, I'm like, I'm not sure that will really work for us. I'm like, well, how about you get someone to crew that part with you, and we will fly and meet you somewhere where it's a little bit more civilization and land. So you have to sort of take that kind of view into account and a potential compromise. So understanding how that looks is important. And it's also a discussion that I've noticed a lot of couples don't really have. When I talk to small business owners, and they're pretty much always women, they're only like slightly sure of what they want, and they really don't know if their husbands even know what they want. So we asked, oh, so how would your husband like to live? Like you have this vision we've spoken about, and we're getting a bit more clarity on. What does he want? And they're like, I don't even think he knows. So it's also taking your partner on the journey too. And then how much money do you actually need to fund that lifestyle? Because again, that those two. So I've deliberately made these rows similar to the
A
money
lot
that you will
with my
have.
boys.
What's that? Sorry?
A lot with my boys.
Well, yeah, but then when they get a bit older, they can start earning their own money if they want to fund things too. So
That's
it's
right.
building that financial responsibility and independence.
Oh, Felix is starting to be an entrepreneur already.
Yeah, I love it.
Selling chewing gum at school to his friends.
He's selling chewing gum. Oh, okay. That's interesting. So yeah, but then and this is also where as businesswomen, we become role models for our kids too. When they
Yes.
see how we aspire for
Yes.
things and how we're planning and being structured, they'll learn that too, and you can then help
Yes.
them. So then we end up with a whole bunch of kids and a generation who are a little bit clearer on their lives than we were when we were probably trying to figure all this out.
Definitely. Yep.
So then the lifestyle vision. So this is what kind of brings it all together. I do go through this in my programs, and I do have a lifestyle visioning meditation on my website. But for now, we'll just sort of what I suggest doing is just taking a piece of paper, quiet space, maybe some soft music in the background if you need to, or you can have some like pumping music if that's what really ignites your inspiration. And think about what your lifestyle looks like. See it in your mind's eye. Describe it as much as you can in as much detail as you can. What does it feel like? Explain the sensory feeling of it. What does it sound like? What are the sounds that you're hearing? It could be a location. It could be busy noises. It could be, not that anybody really probably wants to hear traffic beeping and honking, but that's one of the things I noticed the most when I was in New York, was all the sounds everywhere. And I think for some people, they just, that's exciting for them to hear that. If they were literally outside hearing crickets, like beep, 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 they'd probably go nuts. And I have to admit, because I used to live under a flight path next to 2 level crossing railways, and
Wow.
in quite a busy area. And when I first moved out to where I am now, which is a lot quieter, I was like, so quiet. I can hear the birds chirping. Well, this is weird. Now I love it. And any noises are a little bit like, oh, that's invasive. But it's what you then actually like, not just what you get used to. How does it taste? Are there certain tastes? Are there certain spices? Like, do you need to, go to a place do you want to live in an area where it's just a little bit, culturally diverse? And then what does it smell like? That's linked as well. So I find it's a very sensory thing, because in our worlds, we tend to focus a lot on our auditory and our visual, because we see things, we read, and we're hearing things all the time, whether we're listening to music, podcasts, videos, whatever it is. But bring in all your senses. So write down as much as you can. Yes, in as much detail as you can. You've got it right there, Kellyanne.
Maybe I should fill it out, Alpha.
Well, yes. We can work on that. We'll work on that. Then your retirement number. So this is going into more personal side, because again, what a lot of small business owners don't do is pay themselves superannuation. And actually making sure that you're putting money aside for retirement and building wealth as well. So there's actually kind of 2 aspects to this. There's just your retirement, and you can just fund that, but building wealth alongside it. So we'll just focus on the retirement side for the moment. But the number itself it's important, because a lot of people, I don't think, realize either it's more than what they think or it's actually less than what they think. So on average, you could get a couple in well, and depends on inflation at the moment, but you could have a comfortable retirement for around, if you had $1 million sitting in your superannuation fund. And the other thing too to remember is how far away from retirement you actually are. So you look at what your age is now, what age you want to be when you retire, and then how much you actually need year on year in retirement, keeping in mind that you will still have money being made because there will still be a compounding impact, because you're not going to take all of your retirement money out all in one go. And also the compounding impact of putting money aside every year. So you actually get the benefit of that without touching it until whatever your retirement age is. So, but the important thing is to actually do it and put it in regularly. So figure out a percentage of your income every month that you can put into your superannuation and just keep doing that. Just be very, very consistent, disciplined, just like boringly predictable. When it comes to money, predictability is really very important, and consistency and discipline. Doesn't sound exciting, but it'll get you where you want to go.
I remember asking a boss of mine one time, he was millionaire by the time he was 40.
Yeah.
And I remember he said to me one time, he said, "Kel, becoming wealthy is boring."
Yeah, it really is. And nobody will really say that, because especially not in those words, because everybody wants excitement. We want the next big thing. We want it to be sexy, and whereas it literally it's a bit like if you want to lose weight, it's not how many calories you burn at the gym or how hard you ride the Peloton or whatever the current fad is. And it's how much you actually consume and the quality of what you consume. So one of the things I learned years ago when I was trying to lose some weight, I actually did calorie counting, which in and of itself, it's more than just, it's also what you're eating. And I'm vegetarian too, so I always have to be conscious of like protein intake and all of that. But I was like, wow, it's actually that what I'm eating. The exercise is fitness and toning and strength, whereas what you're consuming is actually impacting your weight. And that's really boring. But you got to keep doing it. Otherwise, you're never going to get to your goal.
Yeah.
So, and then, so that contribution. So it is boring, but knowing the number will at least make it clearer as to what you're heading for. Because I don't think, again, what that does, clarity is absolutely essential when it comes to life and money. That's not to say you have to have everything figured out, but some of the key things figured out so that you at least know where you're heading. It's like going on a holiday. You're like, yay, I'm going on holiday today. And somebody says, where are you going? You're like, oh, I don't know. Right. Well, you're not really going anywhere until you know where you're going. You need to book a flight somewhere, or you need to at least jump in the car and head in a direction. You could just jump in any direction, but you're still heading somewhere. So, and there'll be an ultimate goal. Otherwise, you're literally just going to be driving your whole holiday, and that doesn't sound much fun. So having some idea of where you're going is important. Systems. I know for a lot of people, it's like, oh, it's cringing. But systems are really just, it's repetition, and it's allowing you to focus on the areas of the business that you want to focus on. So if you want to travel to the Far East to look at beautiful fabrics and textiles and homewares, then you need to have all your systems back home set up so that your business can still run, so people can still order what's on your website while you go and do that. So if you don't have that, then you'll be like on your laptop while you're away, trying to find like a Wi-Fi hotspot, standing on one leg under somewhere to try and get like a phone reception, because you forgot to post something, or you forgot to answer something, or, the nurture sequence for new customers isn't set up. So you've got to manually email everybody. Like, that is just not where your talent lies. Like, it's not where your best effort and time lies. So this is where having those repetitive processes, just writing them down and then setting up the actual systems to run them. And then you can also, so that's what they are. And then why you do it is to create that consistency in your business, because you want people to have, as far as your brand goes, you want them to have the same feeling, the same experience every time they come to you, because quite often that's where the repeat business will be. People know what they're going to get. They know how you show up the same way all the time. You communicate in a very open way, or they're familiar with how you communicate, because that's consistent. They're clear on what you offer and how you offer it and what they need to do. Like, for instance, there's a company that I often buy my clothes from in the US, because they offer the same stuff all the time. They don't have like weird fads and whatever. I mean, they can sometimes do that, but I just buy like the same sort of things. I just want simple. And I know it fits. So we'll just go there the whole time because there's consistency. It's clear how I do it every time, because the ordering process is the same. The shipping I know is quick, and you go there for those sorts of things. So it's important to have systems in place to help you support that. And then if you want to scale, and also if you want to do you're generating leads, you want to get more people signing up for your newsletters or your what's happening now kind of things, or your events, there's a product launch, whatever it is, having them in place. Because relying on likes and people sort of following you on Instagram or Facebook is not going to give you a business that's sustainable, because they're sitting on someone else's platform. So you need systems and processes to get people in your list, so that when you have something to say, you can say it to them how you want. You don't have to be watching whether or not you're going to get banned from Facebook because you put the wrong word in. I have, there was a colleague of mine who got banned because she used the word free too often on Facebook. She had like a month's ban or something like that. So you don't want to have that kind of constraint put on you. So then there's how. So software is essentially how it's going to work. So you can have a number of different softwares. There's a software, obviously, to run a website. Then there's payment processing systems, accounting software. You can have like a bookkeeper's kind of will tap into your accounting software. You have task management software. There's things out there like Monday and ClickUp and Asana. There's so many of them out there. And there's social media scheduling softwares. I mean, I think Later is probably one of the main ones. You can even get it for free. So Facebook allows you to post, you can forward post reels, you can forward post stories, you can schedule in everything, which is why I often get asked, like, how do you're always so good on socials. It's like, that's because I like batch it. I do a whole lot of stuff in one day, and then I just program it out, and out it comes. And when somebody likes something, it's like, oh, what did I post today? Because I did that like 3 weeks ago. So it just makes things so much easier for it to just run, so that you can then focus your mental and physical energy on the areas of the business that you love most and that will generate your income. And then who? So as the business owner, it starts with you. So a lot of it is in your head. You've got the steps in your head. You just need to write them down as you're doing it. So you don't have to spend too much time going, okay, today I'm going to write processes. Well, just write them while you're doing it. So if whatever you happen to be doing at that moment, write it down, capture it. And then as you then sort of use it, also get someone else to use it. So you can bring in a virtual assistant, you can bring in a marketing manager or a social media specialist, or whatever it happens to be. They can then help you improve on it as well. And having all that clarity allows for better decision making, because then you can use the data from the systems that you're using and the processes to actually give you some feedback, so that you can go, okay, these are the products that are making the most money, so I need to invest more in marketing those ones rather than those ones, because this seems to be what people are wanting right now.
Great.
So systems are key. Streamlining the systems, however, because there are a lot out there, and there's a lot of duplication as well. When I was setting up, I started with, because it was online learning I started with. So I started with a platform that specialized in that. Their area, they didn't really have much opportunity for SEO, so search engine optimization. So I had to kind of do that separately. Email marketing was a little bit clunky as well. So I was contemplating bringing in a third-party email marketing provider. Then there's other aspects within there. So I ended up spending a bit more and changing to another platform. So I now use Kajabi, because it's got a lot of that stuff in there. I can do affiliate marketing. I can run events in there. I don't have to have too many other plugins. So I'm not paying for a whole heap of systems. Plus, it's all just in the one. So I don't have to manage this, because to be honest, the amount of usernames and passwords.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, another system, another username and password. I already have like a 7-page document just with all the things that I've signed up for over the years. So you have a look at what you've already got, what you really need, and are you using them to their best capacity.
Lucky I'm starting from scratch, so it's easy for me.
So you reduce, but then it's important to actually be conscious in how you're building it too.
Yes.
So that you don't get to the point, because even myself, I still have to do, like, every 6 months, go back and go, okay, I've got all these systems. Am I using them? And especially if I'm paying for them, I want to know that I'm using them to their capacity. And if, like, I've recently just changed, I was using a software that does captions on my videos, but I since found another software that not only does captions, but allows me to edit the videos and also put in text. So I was like, okay, well, I don't want the one that just does captions. I now have this one, which costs me actually a bit less than that other one, and it does more. So it's figuring out how to streamline that.
Yep.
So, and I can talk you through some of those as well, so that you don't have to do too much extra research. And even bank accounts. I've had clients who have, I don't know, I think it was like 15 by the time we actually went through all of just business bank accounts. And then they have like another 8 or so personal bank accounts. I was like, that's too many. Nobody can manage their money effectively with so many bank accounts. And sometimes there's a point in your life where there are little extras, you know, if you've got children and, you know, you want one account for them and you're still managing it because they're little so, but consider streamlining it to just down to 4. So with business owners, you have like a profit account, one for tax, a working account, and then you can have a growth account, like just something simple like that. And in
Okay.
personal life, we'll go through it. It'll be familiar for some of you who know my processes. But again, you look at your lifestyle vision and then you figure out what percentage of your profit can go towards all these various things, which we'll get to that in a moment. Actually, that's the slide after. So actually, you know what? I'm going to go to this one first and then we'll go back to net worth. So then once you have all of those numbers, you can then start to divvy up your profit from your business to fund your personal life. And funding your personal life has lots of facets to it as well, because you've got bills, and they're not necessarily bills that are part of the business that you can deduct. So depending on where your home office is, you'll have, you know, you can probably deduct a bit of electricity and maybe some of your rates and some of your insurances, maybe some fuel, so all of that, but there'll be additional expenses. So they'll still have bills, and you'll have maybe your mortgage or rent, depending. So there's quite a substantial portion of the pie of what I call, like, if you think of your home finances as a pie, and generally speaking, about 70%, 60 to 70% will tend to go into just life expenses. And this will vary depending on your stage of life, how much debt you've got, all of these sorts of things. Always, I suggest 10% goes into a separate account for emergencies. Things like when during COVID, my husband lost his job. So we had some emergency money set aside. I was still earning money, so it wasn't too bad. And we sort of set ourselves up where, you know, we're debt free. So it's, you know, I don't have as much in there because I don't have as many other expenses to pay, but I still like having some funds there. Just recently we had a few things go wrong. Even my bicycle, I had, you know, it cost me a few $100s to get my bicycle sorted. But then I was just like, is that expenses or is that emergency funds? And so then you get to go, well, which piece of my pie am I going to pick it from? But the fact is you have the money there. So it's actually really, it puts you in a position where you don't have to worry about where you're going to get the money from. Fun, got to have money for fun. So you're traveling, you can have money for your business to travel for textiles and things, and or homework, wherever you want to go. But then you can also have some fun stuff as well. So when you go for holidays with your family, if you want to go to the theater, like whatever you want to do, have money for fun so you don't feel guilty about doing it. Money for a new car. The amount of times I mean, you can lease a car for a business, and there's an expense that's part of a different discussion, and that's where an accountant will help as well. But depending on if you want to buy a new family car, preferably paying for it with cash is better than finance. It's just a lot cheaper. You might want to say, sorry.
Alpha, can I just ask, is it,
Yeah.
I haven't looked into it. Is it, what's the word I'm looking for? So obviously I've just bought a new car, paid cash for it.
Yeah.
Is it an automatic tax write-off for the tax this year? Have they brought something in? Have you heard?
I haven't seen anything that's changed. So generally you have like depreciation.
Right.
And this is where, yeah, an accountant would probably be better to give you the specifics for your situation, but there'll be a depreciation aspect. And then there's the running costs where you can sort of use cents per kilometer methods. There's a few things that were supposed to potentially change, but because it takes a little while after budgets and that come through for the changes to actually be approved,
Oh, right. Okay.
don't know if they're actually happening yet. So have a look. So there's two aspects. There's the running cost deductibility, and then there's the capital side of it as well, which is more depreciation.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're things to check with your accountant on. And yeah, so investing for children. I have some stuff that I go through if anyone's interested in that. But yeah, so you can invest for children in a more tax effective way that's legal. There's no, you know, we're not doing anything dodgy here. And then there's generally investing, which is part of the wealth building. So this is above and beyond. So I'm not talking about super here, because you're going to be doing that in your business, and making sure that your business income actually is factoring that in, because it's part of your wealth building, but it's business related, but it's still for your retirement. But you can still invest above and beyond that. So even if you can, and these percentages will adjust depending on what stage you're in your life and how you can actually run things. But I would highly suggest that doing some additional investing. I'll just go back to the net worth. So this is a really good place to start. So it's understanding where you are right now. And yes, it may be a little confronting. And if you would like an Excel version of this where you can fill it in, I have a calculator you can fill in, just let me know. But it's an important one to see where things are at. So in terms of the assets, things that you own, and then your liabilities are things that you owe. So the debt that you've got in relation to those assets. There might not be any. So if you've paid cash for your car, so you'd put the possible market value of the car there, and this is guesstimate, and then the liability side will be nil. And then you total all that up and you see where you are right now. And then when you start to get clarity on the things that you want, you make some adjustments in your finances, then I suggest looking at it again in a year's time to see how you're progressing, because that's when you can kind of go, oh, okay, well, this is working, or this isn't, or this is where I need to make some more adjustments, or I really need to focus on this part of my business to either earn more income or get more clients, or, optimize the products that are making the most money so that I can start to get a bit more income in to be investing or building the wealth that I actually want for life and retirement. So it's not meant to make anyone feel bad, but so sometimes you can actually be pleasantly surprised when you look at it, but it shines a light on things. And when you have the information, then you can actually move forwards rather than sitting there in ignorance and fearing the worst. Or the opposite is thinking it's better than it is, and then not realizing that you really need to make some changes now. Better to do it now than in 5 to 10 years. So now, team number 3. So these are just a suggestion of the types of roles that you'll need in your business at some point. Virtual assistant is probably one of the first things to get. So they will help with, like, if you do a reel or you're doing a podcast, they can help with editing it. So you got to make sure, obviously, they've got the skills to do that, and you've got the processes listed out. Because whenever I do a podcast, I also turn it into a blog post. I do some socials and I post a reel, and I do a blog post. I then might do an email to my list so that, they say, oh, this is the blog post, or this is the podcast for this week. So you can schedule all that out, and then your virtual assistant, you just do one thing and then they will make everything else happen. And that will just free up your time to focus on other things.
You haven't got, we need an alpha on there.
Well, I've got their business coach and or coaching mastermind. So that's, but thank you.
Not everybody's as lucky as I am and have a living.
Oh, hi, Gloria.
I've got my fan club here. It feels very nice. So yes, but a coach is also really important. I know I certainly resisted this at first because I was trying to keep, I was like, oh no, I just need to try and get some profitability up. But what we actually don't realize is quite often they will help you fast track getting to that. So I actually joined a mastermind and got a coach last year, and I haven't done the numbers yet entirely, but I've tripled my income since then. And yeah, sorry. I mean, I was still starting pretty low because I've only really been, it's still relatively new. So I'm still building, but I've done a lot of foundational work to get to there. And so, yeah, so it does help fast track things a lot. Operations manager is something probably more for down the track, where they can help also manage if you've got a list, or depends on your business. For a product-based business, maybe not as much, but more for an online business, service-based in particular, operations managers can help because they can also be like customer experience, keep things running. If you want to go on holidays, they will keep things going in the background for you so that your business still operates. Make sure that fulfillment happens, because that's the other problem with being a small business owner. You kind of get constrained in that you're like, well, if I don't work, then nothing happens, no income comes in. So it's better to then have somebody that you pay to make sure everything still runs. Obviously, they have to make their salary back at least, but it just keeps your business going so you can actually go on holidays. We'll take a break. We'll just generally have some downtime. Social media specialist. This is an interesting one because the whole concept of AI has really kind of come into this now. People are like, oh, I just put some things in, chat GPT and it'll write all my socials for me. I personally am. Yeah, I get the idea behind it. I like my voice to come forward. It's there. It's I'm sure it's useful. I have looked at a little bit and it is quite good. It's quite sort of specific. It depends how specific you are with the search details that you put in, or the requirements. But having some help with social media is often a good thing in the early days, especially if Then come more the pragmatic thing. So bookkeeper is handy for helping with managing your tax and your accounting side of things on a regular basis, making sure that you're actually optimizing the deductions that you can make. I had somebody come to me recently and they're like, if I take a client for coffee, can I deduct that? I'm like, yeah. Anything that's client related. So, and then like, so do I need a business bank account? I was like, yeah, definitely need a business bank account. Otherwise, because the other thing too is the less systems you have and the more messy things are, the more you're going to be paying for a bookkeeper and an accountant. I had a client recently and we're trying to clean up her finances quite a lot. This is one that has the multiple bank accounts. She paid, I think, $30,000 between bookkeeper and accountant in 1 year. And I was just like,
wow,
that's quite a lot. And I actually was communicating with the accountant and I was like, I'm not trying to question what you're doing here, but why did you pay so much? She said, oh, because it's all in such a mess. It's a good thing you're helping clean it up. I'm like, okay, but so you're still happy to charge? I mean, he didn't charge the 30. That was between a bookkeeper and an accountant. But I was like, that's a lot of money. So we were doing some cleanup from the last couple of years too. I'm like,
wow.
So while having them is important, you need to also have some systems and some plans in place so that you're not overpaying for that kind of thing. And then the accountant as well. And also making sure that you know what they have to be lodging for you. I had another client who hadn't had a tax return lodged, her business tax return lodged for 3 years, and BAS's hadn't been lodged for 2 years. And I thought, oh my goodness. I was like, so you didn't notice that you weren't signing, because you have to sign them off. They prepare them and then you sign them off. And I was like, you didn't notice that you weren't signing anything? But they didn't know. So if you don't know and your professional that you're employing doesn't tell you, obviously she doesn't have that accountant or bookkeeper anymore. But it's just also then being aware as a business owner, what are the things that you need to be making sure they're doing for you.
Alpha
Yes.
is so I've already signed one BAS thing, but doing your yearly, so there's your BAS and then still like a normal tax year as such for business, isn't it? Is it the same as personal?
No, so you do. Well, it depends how you're set up. If you're set up as a sole trader, then it all fits into your individual tax return, and there's supplementary parts to your individual tax return.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm not a sole trader.
Yeah. So if you set up as a company, you'll have a tax return for the company or the trust, depending. So trusts have tax returns as well, and then you will still have to do a personal tax return.
Yes. Okay.
So you'll have two.
So that's all end of June still?
Yes. If you go through a tax agent, so an accountant who's a registered tax agent, you get so it's at the end of year is 30 June. You generally have until the following May to lodge.
Right. Okay.
The previous tax year. But yes, and this is the other thing too. Standard tax year for Australia is July to June. You can get adjusted tax years. So some companies can make it January to December if they request an adjusted tax period.
Oh, right.
But for simplicity, I would just stick with the normal tax year just because it's what everyone's familiar with. You don't need to overcomplicate it. No. So yeah, does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. And then a lawyer. The lawyer's really important to help with the structuring. With the structuring too, accountant and lawyer kind of work a little bit together, but I would also make sure they don't overcomplicate it to start with, because when you're starting, I've seen really complex structures for businesses that just didn't need it quite that yet, and not having a clear vision made them just go down a path they weren't clear on what they were actually trying to achieve. And it also probably didn't make it clear for the accountant and lawyer to know what you were intending in order to set it up in the right way. So it's important to have that clarity when you're communicating with your professionals too. And then a financial planner, once you get to a certain level and you've got a certain amount of money and you really want to be able to maybe do a bit more investing and you don't want to have to figure it out yourself, you can definitely get a financial planner in to help structure things and to figure out what investments are there. So they're also a part of a team too. So that's and this sort of the way I've kind of got it there, it kind of builds a little bit on itself. Some of them can happen in other ways obviously as well, but yeah, this is the base potential.
Well, I've already got my three. I've got my accountant, my lawyer, and I've got Alpha.
Lovely. And then I'll help you with the clarity side.
Great.
And so
actually I'm sorry to interrupt, but in my experience, I would go Alpha, accountant and lawyer together.
Well,
I'm going to add you to my list too, Gloria.
There's a lot of overlap in terms of timing with a lot of this. And this is where like your goals, and this is where like those stepping stones aren't absolutely linear. Some will happen sort of side by side, a little bit crossover. And the important thing is to have the clarity to kind of know where you're going. I'm just going to move this image here away a bit, so that you see where you're actually headed. And just to, at the very least, know your next step. You don't have to have them all laid out in front of you, because like I said at the beginning, visions can change and move and morph. But being able to actually know at least one step ahead what you're doing, because sometimes you'll get some information once you do that step that will probably go, instead of going that way, I'm going to go that way, or I'm going to just adjust slightly. So focus on each step, be values aligned and very, very heart-centered about it as well. And then it's consistency and discipline. It's just constantly making those steps and going, okay, if I'm not clear what step I need to do next, what do I need, who or what do I need, what information do I need in order to figure that out? Sometimes it might be go online and do a bit of research and like, okay, what do I do here? Or ask an accountant or ask a business coach or ask your lawyer, whatever. And then you can proceed to the next step. Or do I need to find a supplier? Okay, who do I know who's had suppliers that I can go chat to? And quite often, like I'm already starting to connect you with people who can perhaps help with that. And then you go, okay, all right, now I need to know, now I know what, now I know what I'm doing. That's great. And then you get 2-3 steps down the path and you're like, oh, okay, that didn't quite work out the way I expected. Or I'm feeling really inspired about this. Can I pursue that? So it is a little bit changeable, but it's at least just keep focusing, because sometimes you'll get to a step, and I've had this too, where I'm on like going, I just don't know no, I just don't have it in me right now. So sometimes it's really just shut the laptop, go for a walk, or go have a coffee, or do something, so that you can start to fill your bucket back up, because sometimes that's, as a business owner, you can get depleted and you just need some time to fill your cup back up again. So this, just to recap, so I'm conscious of time. So we talked first about the value of clarity on getting on what you want for your business and your personal life in terms of your vision and goals, so that you can set a plan and prioritize the plan. Then secondly, we spoke about how to simplify using systems and how to automate some of the money aspect of it as well, and how to use those systems and simplify them in a way that actually supports your business and your personal life. And then thirdly, what kind of team can help support through getting you to that level of, or up leveling where you want to go, so that you can actually achieve the business goals that you want, not just make them and go, twiddle my thumbs and I'm just going to wish, what's the manifest it. I was like, well, that's lovely. And you got to have the right energy, of course, but you still have to do something. So this is where understanding what you want and the mindset around it, and then actually having the implementation steps to make it happen, is really important. So this brings me then to the Enriched Life Club. So
right, tell me more.
Yeah, so the reason I established this was because, to be like, after having done the online course that I did as a program, I was like, yeah, there's just so much more. And as a business owner and having, to be honest, really highly functioning, motivated women, I thought I'd like to bring us together. So there's the community aspect, there's the support aspect, and then there's also the ability to just regularly ask questions, because it's not a linear, like, oh, I'm just going to do a course and magically know everything. Because then you grow and you develop, and then a few months later, you're like, oh, really, I need to ask some more questions. And this gives you like regular access to that. So there'll be monthly themes. They'll also be driven. So I've got like a list for the next 13 months of what the themes are. The first one starts next Wednesday, and we're talking about beliefs and habits and ways to support your business and mentally to get over the limiting beliefs that we have. So that's the first part of it. And then the next one is looking at your numbers. So what are your business numbers that you need to know? So looking at profit and loss and revenue, balance sheet. So we're going to get into the detail in masterclass number 2. And then I'm also going to bring in some guest experts, because I don't know all the nitty gritties of absolutely everything. So I've got a social media specialist who will come in. We'll figure out when we're going to schedule that. And then anything else that comes up in the group that people want, and I can try and source an expert if I can't help. And then there's some tools and resources already in there, as well as some other aspects from programs that I've got. And then there's a Facebook group, we'll do lives, and it's just generally there to help support and provide information on an ongoing basis, because it's nice to have that community as well. Yeah. So that's what Enriched Life Club is. Right. A little bit more detail, like I said. So we'll do a first up one-on-one call to find out what you actually want out of the program. and what's your most burning issue right now. Obviously, that's going to morph and change, and there'll be opportunities to progress on that. And then workbooks and materials and all sorts of other things. But I suppose the main thing is really also the accountability and the support.
Great.
And the cost of it, there's a monthly option and there's also an annual option. Obviously, the annual option, you get 2 months free, so it's cheaper. There's no lock-in contract on either of them. So if at any time anyone decides they don't want to be part of it anymore and they're paid for the annual, then we'll just look at the number of months they've had, and then just you get charged the monthly amount, and then we'll just chop off the rest. And there's some additional bonus sessions here as well. If you've already had a values discussion, it'll just be a coaching session. And that's the Enriched Life Club.
Great.
Any questions?
No, all good. Thanks, Alpha. That
So
sounds great.
That's really it. I might just leave
just a comment from me. I have done over the course of my life umpteen of these sort of monthly, what do you call them, subscriptions. I can tell you what else, you know, Alpha's is really top notch, and it's not because I'm her fan club. It's because she has thought everything through before it happens, so that she's not taken by surprise of anybody's issue that might come along that is just their issue, and therefore is very personal to them.
Yeah, I probably experienced most of them myself as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. You've lived it.
Yeah. So and I've received the help as well. So that's because I held off with the concept of a membership for a little while, because I was like, well, how do I add the value in the way I want? So I've actually joined a few. So at the moment I'm part of 2. So I experience how they do it. So one of them is a bit more simplistic, and the other one's really up there. So I'm learning from those and up leveling. And one of the things I really want to be able to do is I want to hold retreats. So that's my ultimate goal. Once we get going, is to pick. I even got my eye on the Eden Health Retreat down in the sort of Gold Coast kind of hinterland there, and I'd love to be able to actually physically get a group of ladies together, so that things will grow and develop. And I have plans. I just have to be patient as they build. So more will come. All right, I'm just going to stop the recording there.